and their algorithms.
Yes, yes. But I guess there's something to be said for copyright. I guess I believe in artist rights, you know?
I agree. Wait, I hope people don't work
Okay.
for Facebook on here.
I think we're on. I think we're on.
We're on.
It's 7 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. What's that? What are you laughing at, Lisa?
I just saw myself saying, does anyone work on Facebook on here on Jewish Live?
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Well, hey, welcome everybody. It's nice to see folks. I think there's more people that we can't see than we can see, but here we are. Welcome to Connected Jewish Wisdom in an Age of Isolation, brought to you by Kehillah Jewish High School in Palo Alto, California. This is show number 7, week 2, and we're having a good time. Show, program, episode, we're not sure what to call it. Whatever we call it, we're having a good time. And I think we are live on Jewish Live, jewishlive.org, brought to you by those cool people at Judaism Unbound. And we're grateful to them for putting us up on there for the next 29 minutes. We've been playing music on the way in and on the way out, but then we got some email from Facebook that I guess reminded us of copyright law. And I think that's reasonable. I think, artists work hard and they should be compensated. I guess if I were to make a counter argument, I'd say we're just putting their music out there in the world and maybe other people will check it out. But I did add 2 new songs to the playlist. If you're checking it out, it's connected. It's on Spotify. You can get there, I think, through my account, which is PHXDAZ. I added a song by Michael Chapman called Aviator. It's like 9.5 minutes, and it's all about the lyrics. I recommend taking a listen to that. And the outro song was going to be Funkadelic's "Good Thoughts, Bad Thoughts," which is an extraordinary song. I once was getting out of the shower. Too much information, but I was getting out of the shower, and that song was playing over the speaker. And I swear I thought I was having a religious experience and hearing the voice of God speak to me directly, only to discover that it was Funkadelic. And I'm not sure, who's to say that George Clinton and the P-Funk All-Stars, don't know how to bring down the divine voice. So those are 2 songs that are on the playlist. You can check them out. But I thought, I don't know, just for some fun, maybe I would play a little music on the way in and the way out. And it's a little nerve-wracking because I'm not one for playing that much in front of people. But if nothing else, I get to show you this extraordinary guitar. It was built in 1943. It's a Martin 0018. And it was originally played by this gentleman here, Jack Cohn, on vaudeville way back in the day, and was gifted to me by my guitar Rebbe, my teacher and dear friend in guitar, Sander Nassen. And so it's a kind of guitar that's kind of built to play the blues on. So I thought maybe I'd open with a little blues because, it is what it is. We are living through it. And then maybe I'll close with something else. So can you hear that? Give me at least you can hear that. Okay, so we'll try to play something here. Here's a blues in E. And by the way, let me just say something about the blues. I came to the blues. I grew up in England and came to it the way a lot of people did through white artists. Eric Clapton was my main squeeze as a teenager, and that's how I found the blues. But of course, the blues is a African-American art form, and anyone that's worth anything that loves this music knows that that's where it came from, and those are the folks who should get the credit for it. And I was glad that my introduction was Clapton and the Stones and people like that who paid their royalties and gave a lot of attention to those artists, unlike some other people, Elvis, who didn't do the right thing and honor those folks who produced great music. So this is not anyone's song. It's just a blues in E. We'll see how it goes. So just for a couple of minutes. Okay, there you go. There's a little bit of that. It's still, I don't know if you can hear it, but it's still going. It has great sustain. Gosh, I do love that music. I do love that music. So let's just let's take a few minutes and let's arrive. Let's kind of get settled. I'm gonna put a little timer on for 2 minutes, just for us to kind of sit and just be with whatever we're feeling, whatever's on our mind, and just try to bring ourselves right here, right now. Just taking a few moments to settle in. Know you're sitting. Feeling your feet on the ground or the inside of your shoes, just feeling the soles of your feet. Feeling your legs against the seat of the chair. And your back against the back of the chair if you're leaning back. Just sitting. Just here. Nowhere to go. Nothing to do. Nothing to fix. Just bring your attention to your breath. Feel your body breathing. Feel your abdomen expand with an in-breath. And contract with an out-breath. There it is, 2 minutes. Goes so quickly. Well, it's good to have folks here. I don't know how your day's going. My day's up and down. You know, I took, we had Professor Ari Kelman on yesterday. I took his advice. I stopped looking at the news at 4 o'clock today. But somehow the news still finds its way of creeping in. Tough days ahead. I think we're all going to have to gird ourselves for what's about to come and what's already here. But, you know, for the next 20 minutes, we can just be here a little bit, just think about this moment, about what it means and what it might mean. If you've been coming back, and I see some of you have been here a few times, you'll know that we've been spending our time together just thinking about the title of this program, Connected Jewish Wisdom in an Age of Isolation. The first time we met last Monday, 2 Mondays ago, we talked about what it means to be connected. And I suggested that being connected is all about friendship, and friendship is all about being able to be authentic with another person, to really show yourself as you are in reality, and that maybe that is our purpose here in this life, is to make contact. You know, I love all those science fiction shows and movies about making contact with extraterrestrials. I think they're a metaphor for our yearning to make contact with another person. You know, who needs aliens when you've got the human race, let alone your pets and the birds out there and the trees and the clouds? You know, is it possible to make contact? Is it possible in some way for someone over there to have some sense of what it's like over here? So that's what we talked about last Monday. And then we spent a couple of evenings talking about wisdom broadly, and that wisdom is the conduit, is the funnel that gets us from wonder, a sense of excitement at the fact that we're here, to the realization that the fact that we're here means we have to behave a certain way and do certain things. In a word, be kind. That wisdom is not the goal, but wisdom is in service of the cultivation of kindness. And this past Monday, we talked about Jewish wisdom, not just wisdom in general, but Jewish wisdom. And the Jewish wisdom is human wisdom, and all wisdom is human wisdom. You know, we are the inheritors of all of it. It's all ours, if we can only cultivate enough curiosity to look, and we can find people that are willing to share it with us. We've had a couple of guests on. We had Dr. Nathan Bennett talk about the New Testament and sacred texts. He had a wonderful line. I asked him what the Bible is, or what a Bible is, and he said, I think quoting his professor, it's a collection of words for us to think with. I love that. That's pretty awesome. Sometimes I think like existence is a collection of atoms for us to feel with. And then last night we had Professor Ari Kelman on, who talked to us about Jewish education and what it could be at this moment. So that's where we are. And so tonight, you know, we're going to talk tonight and tomorrow night, and then we're going to take a break, a spring break, and Passover. But tonight, I want to talk about the end of the name of this program. So it's Connected Jewish Wisdom in an Age of Isolation. Tomorrow night, we'll talk about isolation, which in some ways is the darkest part of that title, but also is the greatest moment of potential. Tonight, I want to talk about this age, this moment in time, what might be happening right now, what we might be in the midst of. You know, 75 years ago, at the end of the Second World War, just after, really a few short days or maybe weeks after the end of the Second World War, Aldous Huxley published an extraordinary book called The Perennial Philosophy. Aldous Huxley, most well known as the author of Brave New World, but he was really one of the great minds and great spirits of the 20th century. And The Perennial Philosophy was his survey of all the world's wisdom traditions. And he did an extraordinary job, an extraordinary gift to humanity. He kind of surveyed Western traditions, Western religions, Eastern religions, and wisdom traditions, and kind of summarized or distilled the wisdom from all those traditions in one book. It's extraordinary reading. I recommend it highly. And in 1945, here's something that he wrote. He wrote that the 20th century is, among other things, the age of noise. So he wrote this in 1945. The 20th century is, among other things, the age of noise. The most popular and influential of all recent inventions, the radio, is nothing but a conduit through which prefabricated din can flow into our homes. Can you imagine if he were writing now about Facebook? And this din goes far deeper, of course, than the eardrums. This din goes far deeper than the eardrums. It penetrates the mind, filling it with a babble of distractions. And where, as in most countries, the broadcasting stations support themselves by selling time for advertisers, the noise is carried from the ears through the realms of fantasy, knowledge, and feeling to the ego's central core of wish and desire. Spoken or printed, broadcast over the ether or on wood pulp, all advertising copy has but one purpose: to prevent the will from ever achieving silence. You see, in 1945, the radio was a delivery system for advertising. And advertising was a delivery system for other people to control our minds, to convince us that the things that they had to sell for their own profit and their own benefit was more important than the purity and the serenity and the clarity of our own minds. So he wrote this in 1945. Again, you know, imagine if he were writing now about Facebook, which lives on top of advertising, which does this not only, by the way, to us adults who might turn the radio on or off, but does it in an abusive manner to our children. And Facebook is maybe only the worst of them, but there are many others, as you all know. So Huxley called the 20th century the age of noise. And for the last 6 months, while I've been at Stanford on sabbatical, I've been working on a book, and I was thinking of calling the 21st century the age of distraction. The age of distraction. It just seems to me that that's the nature of things. The noise has become so clamorous, so loud, so all-encompassing that the last thing any of us seem to be able to do is to pay attention, is to notice the thing that's happening right now. And the thing that's happening right now is miraculous. And right now, and right now, and right now. But you know, we're like the dog in Up. You ever saw that cartoon? I love that cartoon with the old man and the house and the balloons. You know, the dog squirrel, right? We're constantly distracted by the squirrel, which is our phones and our notifications and the advertising that's telling us we need things. But now that we're here with coronavirus, I don't think the age of distraction quite cuts it. And as we've pointed out in the name of this program, I think we're living in an age of isolation now. We've moved from distraction to isolation. But I want to talk about isolation tomorrow. And for the rest of this evening, I want to bring our attention to another aspect of this moment that we're living through. And I think on the topic for tonight's program, we called it "This Moment in Time, the Intersection of Jewish and Human History." So let me tell you a little bit about Jewish history. My friend, I'm sure someone famous said this, but my famous friend, Rabbi Amichai Lau-Lavi, he shared this lovely line with me. He said, you know, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. Sounds like the kind of thing Mark Twain would have said. History doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. So we seem to be living through a moment in Jewish history that is rhyming with some other moments in Jewish history. The two that come to mind are the moments, I should say, after the destruction of the first and the second temples in Jerusalem. Let me paint a picture for you. So in 586, the Babylonians came to town. They rode into Jerusalem and destroyed the temple, which was essentially the central gathering place for Israelite religion in the land of Israel at the time. And it had been standing probably for 500 years. We have a good sense that there was a temple standing in Jerusalem from about 1000 before the Common Era. And the temple had been standing for about 500 years. And the Babylonians came into town and they destroyed the temple and dispersed Jews throughout the Babylonian Empire and exiled many Jews in the world at the time. 70 years after that destruction in 516, Cyrus the Great allowed Jews to return to the land of Israel to begin rebuilding the temple, the second temple. And, that 70-year period is basically a 3-generation period of time. Imagine a generation lasts about 30 years. So 70 years, more or less, is the short end of a 3-generational period. And so 3 generations after the first temple is destroyed, Jews come back, they begin to rebuild the temple. And then in the next 3 generations, somewhere in the middle or late part of the 5th century before the Common Era, the Torah as we know it appears, most likely at the hands of Ezra the scribe. He was a scribe, that's what he was known for. Ezra most likely pulled together the different traditions and stories and laws and redacted them and edited them together and presented the Torah to the Jewish people for the first time as we know it. And that story is recorded in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah in the Hebrew Bible. So 3 generations after the destruction, the temple is rebuilt. And within 3 generations more, the Torah appears. Fast forward 400 years, 500 years, the second temple has now been standing for centuries. And in 70 of the Common Era, the Roman Empire destroys the second temple in Jerusalem. Again, Jews are dispersed throughout the Roman Empire. It's a moment of great trauma. And 70 years after that destruction, there is an attempted rebellion led by Bar Kokhba, an attempted rebellion against the Roman Empire to retake the land of Israel and rebuild a third temple. And the rebellion fails, it's put down. And over the course of the next 3 generations, within another 70 years, by 220 of the Common Era, the Mishnah appears. And the Mishnah is the founding document of Rabbinic Judaism. The Torah is the founding document of Biblical Judaism. And the Mishnah is the founding document of Rabbinic Judaism. So you see the pattern there: destruction, 3 generations, rebuilding or an attempt at rebuilding, and then 3 generations later, the arrival of an extraordinary document, a visionary document that essentially guides the way for the next number of centuries. So we're living at a similar moment 75 years ago, a moment of unthinkable destruction, the Holocaust. 6 million Jews are murdered at the hands of the Nazis, the Germans. And sometimes 6 million is a number that's too hard to imagine. Think of it this way: if you were Jewish and you were living at the time of the Second World War, 1 in every 3 Jews living at the time was murdered. So here we have 5 people in the Zoom room. I don't know how many people are watching on Facebook, but right here, 1 or 2 out of the 5 of us would have been murdered if we were alive at the time of the Holocaust. Fully 1/3 of every Jew in the world was killed. And so 70 years later, 75 years later, here we are. And we are at a moment of rebuilding. It's unclear exactly what it is we're rebuilding and what Jewish life will look like in the coming centuries. But if it's true that history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme, then I have no doubt that the next 70 years are going to be extraordinary. Something is going to happen unlike anything we've seen before, and it will pave the way for the next era of Jewish life. And so this is it's an extraordinary moment to be alive and to be witnessing this. And at the same time, we are living through this also extraordinary and devastating moment of trauma for our entire human family. It's unclear yet how this will play out, but anyone that's paying attention understands that things are going to be different in profound ways. And it seems to me that, by the way, we didn't need the coronavirus to know that. Before this current pandemic hit us, we were looking climate change in the face and wondering what would happen if we didn't get a hold of things by 2050. As people know, there are 65 million permanent refugees in the world. Economic inequality is as bad as it's ever been. This is a very challenging time for our species. And it seems to me that every one of us, individuals, families, communities, religions, countries, businesses, philanthropists, there's only one question we all have to ask ourselves, and that is, what can I do to contribute? How can I help to make what is a pretty grim situation better? And it seems to me that the Jewish people, the Jewish community, which of course includes Jews and non-Jews and blended people, every kind of person is a participant in the Jewish community and lives a Jewish life. It seems to me that our opportunity as a community is to recognize this extraordinary moment of rebirth, this pivot point, this moment of recovery from the generational trauma of the Holocaust and the beginnings of a renewal of Jewish life, and share what we can of our great tradition to help those in need. I mean, it seems to me that we are the inheritors, the Jewish community, and certainly the human race, but it's the Jewish community that has the keys. We are the inheritors of an extraordinary tradition. I don't know if it's unlike any other tradition, but there aren't many. You know, Hinduism has been around for a while, maybe as long as Judaism, maybe longer, but there aren't many traditions that have been around as long, that have been thinking about the big questions for as long as the Jewish tradition, and that have some extraordinary insight into how to best do this thing called living. And so it seems to me, you know, I'm a Jewish educator. That's what I bring. And I know there are many others who also see their work as the sharing of this great tradition. It seems to me that we're living an extraordinary intersection of two historical moments. One, the rebirth and the renewal of Judaism, and two, a human race at a time of dire need. And so this is the time. And so I invite anyone that's listening to consider what might we have to bring, to contribute, to share, to help not only our Jewish community, but our human family at this time. I'm going to finish with a song. You know, this past Sunday was going to be our school's gala, our school's fundraiser, and we were going to welcome our incoming head of school, Daisy Pellant. I'm so excited for her. A very challenging time, certainly, to be taking over any institution, but certainly a school. And so I'd written this song, and I was going to play it for our community and for her, but I didn't get to. So I'll play it now, and then we'll sign off. This is called 7 Years.
Thank you.